Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel Cakes by MK. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you guys how to grow your own rock candy or rock crystals and how to use them to create a gorgeous geode cake. Rock candy can be a little bit difficult to find in certain places around the world, but the good news is that it's super easy to make yourself at home. If you're new to my channel, please click the subscribe button below and don't forget to turn on the notification bell so that you're updated whenever I upload a new video. Apart from that, stay tuned and I hope you guys enjoy this video. So the first step to making rock candy is to make a really thick sugar syrup. So what I've got here is I've got some white granulated sugar and some water, and the ratio of sugar to water that you want is 3 parts sugar to 1 part water. So what I've got here is I've got 3 cups of sugar and 1 cup of water. And what I'm going to do first is I'm just going to put that into my pan that I've got here, and I'm just going to heat that up until my sugar is completely dissolved and my mixture is nice and clear. Now, once your mixture has turned into a clear liquid, the next thing that you want to do is you want to pour your mixture into either a glass jar, like the one that I've got here, or even just, a small glass or whatever you're going to basically grow your rock candy in. Now, the amount that I made today will allow you to either make one nice long kind of piece of rock candy, or you can also distribute it into smaller cups, especially if you're wanting to kind of change the color. So this would be the time that you go ahead and color it. So you just put a few drops of gel food color and mix it in, depending on whichever color that you want. Now, what you want to do next is you want to let this cool for about 1.5 hours to 2 hours before we do the next step. So to grow your rock candy, what you're going to need is you're going to need some more white granulated sugar, some plain water, some skewers to use to stick this sugar to, which we're then going to be putting into the thick sugar syrup that we just made earlier. And then you're going to need some sort of like peg or something which you can use to hold your skewer nice and straight in the jar that you've got your thick sugar syrup in. So I'm going to show you how to do all of that right now. So what I've got here is I've got some sugar syrup, which I made earlier, which has been cooling for about 1.5 hours. Now, the reason why you do want to let this cool is because if you go ahead and kind of assemble your skewer with your sugar and all of that and put it into your hot syrup, all the sugar is just going to kind of dissolve or drop to the bottom, and then your rock candy is not going to grow properly. So just make sure that you do kind of give it some time to, cool down. Now, what you want to do is you want to grab one of your skewers and you want to dip it in some water, which is going to make it wet so that our sugar can stick to it. And then what you're going to do is you're going to roll your skewer in some sugar so that the sugar sticks to the skewer. And then the next part is to grab your jar with your sugar syrup in it. And then you want to grab your skewer and really carefully just place it into your sugar syrup. But you want to make sure that it's not touching the bottom. So it should be kind of a few centimeters from the bottom so that the rock candy can grow properly. And then once you've got it in, you just want to grab a peg or something that's kind of long enough to keep it up. I'm going to use 2 so that my skewer is in the middle. Now, once you've got the skewer nicely placed in the middle, then the next thing we're going to do is just simply let this sit now for 1 to 2 weeks. So the longer you leave it, the bigger your crystals are going to be. And what's basically happening here is the sugar that we placed on the skewer is kind of like the seeds, which is going to attract some of the other sugar that's going to start to solidify and then create this beautiful rock candy. So I'm going to pop this aside now, and what I've got here is I've got 2 which I made earlier, and I'm going to show you guys how to take them out and what they look like. So what I've got here is I've got two skewers which I prepared about 2 weeks ago, and they're both slightly different and they give you slightly different rock candy. So one of them is the normal way, which is grown properly from what I can see. And the second way is when I had put my skewer in a little bit too early, so my sugar didn't dissolve, but it did kind of fall off the stick and fall to the bottom. Now I have done this before, but what I found is this actually still creates some really beautiful sugar crystals, which I actually kind of really like. So I wanted to keep this here just to show you guys what it looks like as well. So if you do end up doing this and it doesn't quite work out the normal way, then don't worry, you can still kind of salvage the crystals that you've got on the bottom of your jar. So we're going to start off with the normal one first. Now what you want to do is first just remove your pegs, and then just grab a knife or anything kind of sharp, and you want to crack the kind of crystals which are formed at the top. And then next I'm just going to pour all that excess liquid into this bowl here, which is then going to kind of reveal the sugar crystals which have grown. And now I'm just going to use my knife again to help me release the skewer from the bottom of this jar. Okay, and there it is. So I've got this really beautiful rock candy growing on my skewer there. And how beautiful does that look? And now I'm going to pop it aside and show you my second one. Now with this one here, I'm just going to do the same thing first. So I'm taking off my pegs, and then I'm going to crack the top. This one I had also placed gel color in, which is why it's got that beautiful red color. Now with this one, because the sugar fell to the bottom, my stick isn't going to have a lot of rock candy in it, so it's probably just going to come right out. Yep, so it's only got a tiny bit on there, so I'm just going to put that aside. Now I'm going to pour out the water. Now what I'm going to do next is I'm going to use my knife to kind of start crushing the sugar up, and then I'm going to pour it all out onto this plate that I've got here. Now what you'll notice is that there's these kind of big clumps of sugar which have formed, and what I'm going to do next is I'm just going to break them up into small pieces and place them onto a paper towel. Now as you're breaking the sugar apart, it may seem a little bit soft and kind of crumbly, but don't worry, because once you let it dry, they become really hard and then really easy to put onto your cakes. Now once you've kind of picked out all the little pieces of sugar, you're actually left with quite a few pieces of rock candy or sugar crystals, almost the same if not more than the one which actually grew really nicely and the proper way. And now what you want to do is you want to let these completely dry, and then they'll be nice and firm and ready to put onto your cakes. Now when it comes to the rock candy on the stick, all you need to do is just get something like a rolling pin or something that's a little bit firm and just kind of bang it against the rock candy, and that will break it up into pieces which you can then use to put onto, say, a geode cake. So to make my geode cake today, I've got a 6-inch 3-layer cake here, which I have coated in vanilla Swiss meringue buttercream, and it's been sitting in the fridge, so you want to make sure that your buttercream is really nice and firm. And then I've got some rock candy here, which I made earlier, and then I've got a few other things to finish decorating. Now the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out the shape that I'm going to put my geode crystals in. Now I'm first just marking out where I want my cut to be, just to make sure that I'm happy with kind of how it's placed before I go ahead and cut my cake out. Okay, so I've done 2 cuts into my cake, and now the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to cover those cuts up with buttercream. Now the reason why you want to do that is 1, it's going to prevent your cake from drying out because it's going to kind of seal it up, and 2, the soft buttercream is what our geode crystals are going to stick to. And to put the buttercream on, I'm just using a small offset spatula. Now once that's nicely covered up, the next thing to do is to put our rock candy onto our cake. So the way that I'm going to do it is I've got some colored pink ones here as well as some white ones. I'm going to go ahead and put the pink ones in the middle and then put the white ones on the outsides. And you kind of want to fit them in a way where it's kind of like putting a puzzle piece together so that as much of the buttercream underneath is hidden as possible. So now that the rock candy is nicely on my cake, the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to paint the middle and kind of paint it out towards the sides so that there's like an ombre effect. And to do that, I've just got some gel color here which I've diluted in some water. So now that I'm done with painting the rocks, the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to paint an edible gold kind of rim around both of the cuts that I've got on my cake. Now the way that I made my gold paint today is I just mixed some gold luster dust with a little bit of water. Now I'm just putting a little bit of gold leaf around the edges. So to finish off decorating my geode cake, I've got some fresh roses here and I'm just going to wrap each of them before I put them into my cake. Now if you're not quite sure how to put fresh flowers safely into a cake, then I'll post a link to a video I've done on this below. So I've placed all the flowers on top of my cake and I'm going to finish off by crushing a few of the rock candy that I had left over and sprinkling that kind of around the cake. Okay, and that is it. So my geode cake is all done. I hope you guys enjoyed this video on how to grow your own rock candy at home, as well as how to use that rock candy to create a gorgeous geode cake. Please like and subscribe for more videos like this, and thanks again for watching Cakes by MK.